Good morning, members of the media, and thank you for joining us this morning. We're going to be hearing from the Acting Commissioner of Police, Mr. Darren Simons, who is going to provide us an update on the 2018-2019 crime stats. Mr. Simons?
Good morning, and thank you. As Gary said, today's press conference is about the 2018-2019 annual crime statistics. The actual statistical reports are available for download and review on our website. What I hope to provide here today is a high-level overview of what the statistics identify. I apologize in advance. There's a lot of material to kind of get through, so my head will be a bit down in the papers as we're going through the initial part of the press conference. So without further ado, 2018. In 2018, there was a 15% increase in crime overall as compared to 2017. In real numbers, we went from 3,202 crimes to 3,694. This essentially equates to 10.12 crimes a day. Comparing 2017 to 2018, offenses increased in the crimes against the person category. In real numbers, that means there was an increase from 645 to 723. Crimes against property changed from 2,144 to 2,416. Crimes against the community increased from 413 to 555. Q3 2018 had a noticeably high rate of crime, with 1,109 crimes recorded. 227 of those were for motor vehicle theft. While these increases are unwelcomed, a noteworthy point is that 2017 was the lowest year for crime since year 2000. And in 2000, there were 6,120 crimes recorded that year. Firearms incidents remain a major concern for the community, and in 2017 there were 3 firearm fatalities and 6 firearm injuries for a total of 9 incidents. And in 2018 there were also 3 firearms fatalities. However, there were 2 injuries for a total of 5. Gang tensions remain the main cause of firearms incidents. Let's move on to collisions. In 2017, there were 1,250 road traffic collisions recorded, and in 2018, we saw that increase to 1,468. In 2018, there were 12 fatalities, compared with 15 in 2017. There were also 92 serious injuries and 658 minor injuries. In terms of traffic enforcement, the BPS issued 9,786 tickets. This was a decrease from the previous year, where we issued 10,646. Arrests. In 2018, there were 2,728 arrests recorded, which is an increase of 286 when compared to 2017. Of note, there were 11 arrests for murder and 366 arrests for impaired driving. Of those arrested, the gender breakdown is 82% male and 18% female. 83% were black, 11% were white, and the top 3 nationalities were 88% Bermudian, 6% American, and 1% UK nationals. The largest group of persons arrested in 2018 were between the ages of 26 and 35, with 32%, followed closely by the year or age groups 18 to 25 that saw 24% of the arrested persons. The youngest person arrested was 10. That individual was arrested for theft. And the oldest person arrested was 83, and they were arrested for causing grievous bodily harm through careless driving, basically a serious road traffic accident. 2019. In 2019, there was a 9% increase in crime overall compared with 2018. In real numbers, we went down from 3,694 to 3,347. This equates to 9.17 crimes per day. Comparing 2018 to 2019, recorded offenses increased in crimes against the person in real numbers from 723 to 741. Of note, there were 10 more sexual assaults that year and 21 more minor assaults. There was decreases in both the crimes against the community, where we moved from 555 offenses to 538, and there was also decreases in crimes against property, where we went from 2,416 to 2,068. There were notable decreases in residential burglary, motor vehicle theft, and general theft. In 2019, 0 murders were recorded. This was the first time since at least year 2000 that no murders were recorded. However, in 2019, 2 persons were shot and injured. Collisions. There were 1,411 road traffic collisions recorded in 2019. Included in that number were 9 fatalities, 113 serious injuries, and 638 minor injuries. Now, using the 5-year average between 2015 and 2019, 1 person died on our roads every 34 days, 1 person was severely injured every 4 days, 1 person was slightly injured every 14 hours, and 1 person experienced a damaged-only collision every 13 hours. These are sobering statistics that highlight the harm created by bad driving, and the BPS remains committed to education and enforcement as key tools that influence driver behavior. In terms of traffic enforcement, we issued 14,037 tickets. This is a notable increase over the 9,786 tickets that were issued in 2018, and represents a clear demonstration of our commitment to traffic enforcement. Looking at arrests, in 2019, there were 3,548 arrests recorded, which represents the highest yearly total since 2011, where there were 4,540 arrests. This is an increase of 820 arrests when compared to 2018. Of note, there were 5 arrests for historical murders, bearing in mind there were actually 0 murders that year, and 341 arrests for impaired driving. Of those arrested, the gender breakdown is 77% male and 23% female, 86% black, 6% white, and the top 3 nationalities were 91% Bermudian, 2% American, and 2% Jamaican. The largest age group of persons arrested in 2019 were between the ages of 26 and 35, similar to the previous year, followed closely at 32%, followed closely by the age group 18 to 25, representing 22% of the arrests. The youngest person arrested, again, was 10, and that was for willful damage, and the oldest person arrested was 86, and that was for impaired driving. Now, we are 2021 and we're talking about 2018 statistics. It would be remiss of me not to speak to the delay in releasing the statistics. To start, I would like to apologize for that delay. We find ourselves in the regrettable position of providing these statistics around 2 years later than we would like. In the case of the 2018 report, it was actually completed in January 2020. However, in what can only be described as an oversight, it was not released until the media recently asked for a copy of our statistics and the gap was discovered and rectified. The release of the 2019 statistics was affected by the resourcing challenges created by COVID. Notwithstanding this, in terms of setting expectations, the public can expect an annual statistics report to be produced about 1 year after the year under review. Now, I can certainly understand people asking the question, why does it take so long to produce statistics? The challenge really is in producing accurate statistics, and we're committed to being accurate over being quick. There's a recording and reviewing process that requires each event to be touched or handled or reviewed 4 times. There's, to start with, there's an inputting officer who creates an entry that basically describes in text form what happened. Their supervisor then is responsible to check that initial entry for accuracy. Then we have a records management support unit that verifies the information, creates links from the text files for people, places, vehicles, in the mentioned incident. And then the supervisors of our records management unit are responsible to check that all the outstanding actions are correct and that the correct principal offense has been identified. The principal offense is used to drive the statistical information. For 2018 and 19 stats, there were 44,094 individual records that needed to be created in process. Each of these records were handled by 4 groups of people. So if you multiply the 44,000 by 4, you're at 176,000 records that effectively need to be checked. You get a better appreciation for the size of the task. And the reality is we haven't even begun to talk about the time it actually takes to do this. Our reality is that over the years, because of declining staff levels, the BPS has had to shift resources from administrative areas to operational areas. All this to ensure that we continue to respond and investigate crimes to the high standard that the Bermuda public expects. Unfortunately, one of the areas that has been adversely impacted is the timely generation of statistics, due also in part to our refusal to lower the accuracy of the statistical reports. Now that sort of concludes my prepared remarks, and I invite your questions.
So, afternoon, Mark Glasser here from Media Maya. My question will be, when will the 2020 statistics be put out?
So thank you, Maya. Given the current trends and projections, we would anticipate that by before the end of the first quarter 2022, those statistics will come out.
Okay. Now, can we talk a little about all the road collisions and all those stats that you mentioned there? It seems that both times you said the age of the highest arrests for both years was like around the 80s.
86 and 83, yep.
Yeah, and it had to do with road collisions. Can you speak more about how you guys are addressing that?
So you would have probably, unless you've been living under a rock, you would have heard about Operation Vega and our, continued efforts around enforcement. We are engaging with the Road Safety Council around education and awareness types of programs, and we're also engaging with the ministry around looking at the traffic fine levels, and also there are discussions about sort of road design, because there's a number of frequent accident spots. So in terms of addressing driver behavior directly, it's about education and enforcement. We have a graduated response to dealing with drivers. So in some particular cases, we will issue what's called a motorist advice notice. So we would notice or come to our attention some bad driving behavior, and we say, like a caution, you're not getting a ticket, don't do this again. And sometimes it's obviously ticketing. And you will see that the numbers of ticketings, even into 2018, we've gone from 99,700 to 14,000 in those 2 years, particularly.
Can we address those numbers too? Because that's a pretty high jump per year. I remember there was a time when you guys were doing a stop and search. Was that during that time?
No, so stop and search is a distinct activity from, traffic enforcement types of stuff. But I just think because I have the same view, like that's a pretty big change. So, and I think what it represents is just a shift in focus around a particular endeavor. And what you're definitely going to see in the reports that are coming out, 2020, 2021 and onwards, is those numbers of traffic enforcement are going to remain high. It's something that we're asking our officers to do.
So even though the numbers obviously went high for the ticketing from
Higher.
9,000 to the 14,000s, but it seems like the road collisions and the road accidents kind of stayed the same, or even got worse from 2017 to 2018. So is there another thing that you're doing to address it other than ticketing?
Well, there's also education, there's also road design. Those components are there. Ultimately, accidents are about choices that drivers make, individually. So those are our primary efforts, and I think in time we're going to see some declines in road traffic accidents. We've already seen, for example, declines in numbers of impaired driving, and that's without a doubt, due to the enforcement around impaired driving.
Those can also be due to the pandemic as well, making it less for us being on the roads, correct?
This year, yes, there was definitely going to be, we'll have to look at the pandemic, but when you look at, 18, 19, 20, those years were not, 18, 19,
yes.
We didn't have a pandemic issue. But yes, you're absolutely right. There's without a doubt, the lack of ability to move around the road will impact the levels of enforcement, the levels of offenses.
My last question, so the other reporter would be about having someone actually be the point person, I guess, for uploading all these statistics. I know you said that you had, the loss of some people and finding it hard to get people who are committed to doing just that one thing, like doing the stats and uploading them on a timely manner. Are you guys addressing that by having someone in that permanent position?
No, really, to be really clear, that has come down to having to choose between, generating statistics rather than providing a response on the road. So there was a point in time where we were able to produce these, quicker. And there was one individual who it was their full-time job to do that. That was a senior investigator, and it requires that level of experience to make some decisions about what the principal offenses are and to liaise on a daily basis with investigators. There was a real fight in the organization about keeping that individual there or putting them in the criminal investigation division to actually investigate crime. So that's the choices we made. We exist to make Bermuda safer, not make stats quick.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Those are my questions.
Good morning, Acting Commissioner. Gareth Finnegan from Royal Press.
Sorry, Gareth, you maybe, because I can't, it's muffled. Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you.
I appreciate it too. If I could just focus on the 2019 figures.
Okay.
There were 3,347 crimes committed, and yet 3,548 arrests. How come there were more arrests than crimes?
Okay, so crime, so there are a lot of arrests, for example, warrants. Now, warrants aren't going to be reflected in crimes. So that's one off the immediate bat. And sometimes there can be multiple people connected with one crime.
Right.
So, yeah.
Sure, okay. Now, of those 3,548 arrests, 3,037 were black, as you said, 86%. Previous year it was 83%, compared to just 6%, 223 white. Again, do you have any reasons for why you think that might be the case?
Well, first of all, the causes of crime and the reasons for crime are complex, right? And I think that the answers to the different numbers of black and white are a bit population and a bit because some of the social factors that exist in Bermuda. So beyond that, it would be difficult for me to articulate why that is the case. Yeah.
Okay. 741 crimes committed against the person, and yet only 326 arrests made.
Sorry, hold on. What are you quoting
this is
again?
for 2019, there were 741 crimes against the person, 326 arrests. That seems like a poor arrest.
Sorry, I'm actually confused about the 326. So in that year there were 2,728 arrests made. 366 of those were for impaired driving.
Right. But I'm talking about crimes against the person.
Yes. So the only data I gave was the sheer numbers of those offenses, not arrests connected with those offenses.
Sure, but we had the...
The original? Okay. All right. Fine. Okay.
So
Thank you.
That's where I got it from. I think I'm correct.
No, you might be. I just don't have that data in front of me now.
So again, it's assuming that information is correct. That's what, only just half.
Yep.
Again, that seems an poor arrest rate.
Got you. I don't know that it's necessarily poor, but obviously linking offenses and catching offenders is core to what we want to do and what we want to achieve. Sometimes it just takes time. So it could be that offenses in the last part of the year are only detected to the point of arrest a little bit later. It's just very difficult when you take a single snapshot in time for a target that's actually moving.
Sure. And just focusing in on that, sexual assaults in 2019 were at 50, and again, only 26 arrests were made, and sexual assaults between 2015 and 2019 rose pretty sharply from 35. I think they went up every year just about, from 35 in 2015 to 50 in 2019.
Okay.
Just 26 arrests made. Also in 2019 we had 45 cases of indecency, yet only 15 arrests made. Is there any explanation for that other than the one you just gave?
Right. So I think particularly in sexual assault, one of the issues that every modern police force faces is the willingness of victims to come forward. And one of the views that is often attributed is that when police put more energy in raising people's awareness and creating a climate for people to make reports, a more favorable climate for people to make reports, more reports are being made. So it's difficult to say, whether or not the more reports actually is a representation of there's more happening in the community as opposed to a greater willingness on the part of victims to come forward. In terms of the arrest rate, I'm very confident that the women and men that are dedicated to doing this job are doing the absolute best that they can. And generally speaking, Bermuda has a very good arrest and conviction rate relative to the offense rate.
Just two more questions, Acting Commissioner, if I may. Talking about convictions, do you actually have any figures for how many of these, 3,347 crimes that were committed, how many of them were actually successfully prosecuted? Because it's one thing to say, we
yeah.
these arrests.
Yes. Yeah, so we generally have that figure, that number available for murders. When it gets down to volume crime, tracking that is a little bit harder because you could appreciate that it could be years in some cases, not the vast majority, but there's a long time between the commission of a crime and appearing before the courts. And we don't actually keep that record. That record is held in the courts, and it's quite a bit of work to marry that data back to conviction. So to be frank, that's not an area we've put tremendous amount of focus except within the most serious crimes, particularly murder.
Understood. One final question, doesn't actually relate to the crime statistics. Commissioner Corbishley, were you surprised at his resignation?
Today's press conference was really about the 2018-19 statistics.
You don't want to
I appreciate, yeah. But we're gonna talk about the statistics today.
Acting Commissioner Simons, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, members of the media, if there are no other questions for the Acting Commissioner, if you want to put those questions, if you have any other questions, and you want to email those questions to us, we will be happy to accommodate you. That's where we end today's press conference. Thank you for attending.
Thank you.